Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Adoption Happy Hour brought to you by NAAP. We are the National Association of Adoptees and Parents, where it is our mission to unify the adoption community and elevate our diverse voices by promoting dialogue, understanding, and healing through education, awareness, and connections. I'm Marcie Keithley, along with Jennifer Falsing and Beth Story in the Zoom room, and we're just excited that all of you are here tonight to join us to hear from our good friend Diana Hochberg and her latest release, her memoir called Connected, which is an excellent book. So if you haven't picked up your copy, you definitely want to do that. So welcome, everybody. Before we begin, we do have some housekeeping items. Great, thank you. We want to remind everyone that this is a public meeting with no guarantee that information or identity is confidential. Portions of this event are recorded and may be shared in our private happy hour group on Facebook and our YouTube channel. So if you don't follow us on Facebook at the happy hour group, please reach out. That's where Diana's replay will be. Please remain on mute, raise your hand on screen or the virtual hand to be recognized. You may post your questions or comments in chat. If you're experiencing a serious mental health event or suicidal thought, please contact a licensed professional or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988.
Okay. We want to remind you, as always, about all of the programming that NAAP has each month. We have happy hour the first and the third Friday of each month with a variety of guests coming to talk to us as the adoption community. We also have Putting Yourself Together After Reunion, facilitated by Dr. Joyce. That is on a Tuesday night, and Jennifer, I believe, is at the 19th this time. It's usually the second or third, and I think it's the third Tuesday night coming up in August. And we
19th.
talk. Okay, great. We talk all things reunion, and she has so much wisdom to share with us. Another one of our programs is First Families, Birth Parents Journeying Together, and that is facilitated by Amy Seek, and that is the second Thursday night of the month, and that would be the week prior then to Dr. Joyce. And we appreciate Amy leading this group. And then we close out the month each time with Dr. Liz DeBetta, Migrating Toward Wholeness, Rewriting Adoption Narratives in the Constellation. And that group meets the fourth Thursday of each month. If you register at any point for any of these groups, you will continue to get emails when a new event is posted for that particular support group. So I always go to my inbox and I search Eventbrite, and then those invitations pop right up if I've missed one, and I can find it quickly and be able to register. So we hope you will join us at these other events that we have. That's it for me.
That's it for you, Beth. Jen, you have any news?
Well, sure. I mean, if you want to follow us on social media, myself, Cara Rubenstein DeYaron of Right to Know, and Rich Erlob are going to be heading out on Sunday for Boston, and we will be at the 50th National Conference of State Legislators. We are exhibitors there, so it's great. We have two booths there. We have one, and then Lynn Grubb, Gay Sherman, Tannenbaum, Andy, and I can't remember who the other person is, will be working the other booth. That's the Adoptee Rights Coalition. So we have two booths there advocating for access to records for adoptees. So we have every chance to contact every single legislator, but we will be going live from there. We will have some videos. We'll try and show you some of the cool stuff that we're getting to do. And if you follow us on TikTok, you will see us out on TikTok too. So hopefully we have good stuff to come back and report to everybody.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate that. Okay. Diana, how are you tonight? You ready?
I'm ready.
Well, we'd like to welcome you to Adoption Happy Hour. I know you've been our guest before, and we're glad to have you back. I know you've been with us quite some time. I think we met right after COVID.
Yes.
But we physically didn't meet until Louisville, and that was what?
Correct.
Summer 2022 when we had the untangling our
Our
roots
roots.
the first year. Yeah. So it's great to have you. And I know that you've been working long and hard on your book, and it's now published. And that's what we'd like to have you share with us tonight, all about your journey of writing and where you are today. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm so honored to be here. The book, it was born out of a moment that changed my life. I'm grateful to have a chance to share the journey with all of you today. And I do have a little slide presentation.
Sure. While we're waiting for the slide presentation to come up, please feel free to use the chat room and let Diana know how you identify in the adoption constellation and what state or country you're in.
Okay, as everybody knows, that's my book is Connected, Finding My Truth. And my publisher we had decided that was the best thing for it with all my connections. And on the cover, I will share with you, the woman wearing the bikini is my mother. She was the first woman to be photographed in Canada wearing a bikini. It was scandalous, so it went into the archives for the next 12 years. And then after, when it came out, it's in every year during the weekend in August, it's in the newspapers throughout Canada. So that's the cover. It's a very nostalgic cover, and there's the beginning of I didn't see that picture until 4 years after I found out who she was. And it was in a newspaper article that was sent to me. And if you go to the next slide, please. The big question, what if everything you believed about your life was a lie? And my story began that over a casual lunch, I was in Las Vegas, and a family friend of my parents, when I say my parents, my raised parents, we were talking, was my son and I was recently widowed back then. And he said to me, "It's too bad you lost your mother. You were 10. You lost your father. You were 25. And now you lost your husband. Would you like me to help you find your parents?" So I was definitely blindsided by the whole thing, and it was quite an emotional ordeal. And I had a lot of trouble believing, like, what is this man saying to me? As we know, when we first hear it, especially as a late discovery, I was, almost 39 years old. It's quite a shock to hear late in life. And if you can go to the next one, please. That's the with sudden loss of identity. That's the man I was met with in 1993. He had also at one time he had worked for the CIA. He was a family friend, but it just so happens that his connections might have helped me find out sooner who the next step of my story was. So if we go on to the next, I'd like you to.
This is Manny Diamond. I have all your information. I know where your family comes from, who your birth mother is, and there's a man by the name of Mort Schulman who will call you and fill you in on this. Your family comes from Vancouver, Canada. Your mother is of Polish descent. And if you want any more information, you'll have to call me. That's it. I hope.
And that recording, just so you all know,
We'll get
is
complete
from
details.
19.
I don't have to go any further. That's all I've got to say right now.
Okay.
Go on.
And just so you know, that recording, it totally stopped my world. It was from actually 1993. It was the fall of 1993, 6 months after I first had that visit in Las Vegas with the man, because I had a lot of trouble comprehending that what he was saying was the truth. In the book, they talked about my birth certificates and how I have multiple birth certificates. That was another red flag. Instead of having one, I have four. My first one came from New York State. It just had my first two initials. And then the second one had my name is Karen Diane, and a third one had Diana Karen. So I actually have 4 birth certificates. And then at the end, I got a letter from the New York State that I was one of 52 cases that year. And the case was closed and he couldn't find any adoption records. So that just fueled me to want to find out more. So from 1993 to 2000, I searched Las Vegas, Florida, New York, Montreal. And of course, that man who I connected with, Mort Schulman, he played an important part in the role because he happens to be what I would call a baby broker. And Mort he did fill in a lot of blanks. He knew my mother, he had met her in Montreal, Canada, and he helped her out and he made arrangements. He told her he could make arrangements, but they came across a little problem. The parents that he found was actually, which if people have read the book know it's a little complicated. He's done this more than once. He did this. I was one of I don't know if he did 1,000, but he was tied in with a bunch of other salesmen, as we say, salesmen who were part of this organization, and sometimes they were sold to United States and other parts of Canada, and including also Michigan. I was My parents were from of modern Jewish descent from New York. They were looking for a baby, and with this one, it just happened. My father didn't know Mort. He knew of him. He knew his father, and so he heard about this, and he went through the black market with this man. I came when I was 21 days old. They crossed the border into Plattsburgh, New York, and then they went on to Lake Placid. At that time, there was no adoption papers signed. She refused to sign adoption papers, but she did accept money for college, money for dental work, and a one-way ticket back to her hometown, Vancouver, British Columbia. And so that was the start of everything. And then I continued doing search on my mother, and I did meet down the road, I met my biological aunts and uncles and grandmother, and they all referred to me as Donna because I look so much like my mom. You know, that mirror effect that we get. Who do we look like? Mannerisms, the way I move my hands, the way I move my head. So I think for some of them it was very difficult, and for others it wasn't. They said they knew nothing except for one aunt she knew. I was told, though, my father was also a Canadian from Vancouver, and I was told that he was Italian. And so I did a search on that, and that was a search that took for very many, many years. And if anybody, I'll tell you, there was my house was burglarized. I had been searching. My home was burglarized and it was turned upside down. It was ransacked, and all the papers and everything I had been searching for that had been accumulating was gone. But I was lucky I had left some journals in the back of my car when I was out that evening. So I was very lucky that they didn't get that. But they did do a number to the house at the time. And so at that point, I had to do some thinking what to do. But that didn't stop me back then. That just turned me to, I got to see what's going on. It was in the year after I had met my family. It was actually in the year I was in reunion from 1994 to the year 2000. I had made several trips up to Canada. And then one night I received a phone call that if I didn't stop searching for who my father was, because I didn't start really thinking about who he was until 1997. I had a great dad. My dad was fabulous. I had no reason or no desire for a long time, but then it was more curiosity. The more they said, "Oh, you don't want to know," the more I wanted to know. It's like a kid. You say, "No, you can't have it. You want it." So I went ahead and with this phone call, he threatened the life of my child, the life of my friends and family, and said if you didn't stop your search, he knew where my son went to school. He even knew what he was wearing that day. And it was threats like that that made me stop my search. I cut myself off from Canada. I said this wasn't worth it. I cut ties for the next 15 years. And that's another reason why there's a long gap of a 30 years, because those 15 years I did nothing. Okay, could you go to the next slide, please? And that was the picture that was sent to me in the newspaper article. That's a closer up one from the in Vancouver. And then I have a cousin who he colorized it there. And the article read, "We can't run that," because people would complain, because it was why all of a sudden they were running it. And then when it was 50 years into it was out 50 years, they really made a big deal of it. And the pictures go through Canada and everything. I guess it was a big deal. Now, I did find out my mother did return to Montreal, and she did go to, she graduated from McGill University, and she did speak 5 or 6 languages fluently. She was also an avid skier, swimmer. So I do know that. So can you do the next slide, please? And this is over the years, and these were the letters that I had received from my grandmother and stuff when I first met her. She gave me, and there had been stories written about my mother, and even on my trip up to Canada in the upper right, have you seen her father? There was some misinformation because, not that the newspaper ever writes anything wrong. They never do that, right? So there was some misprints and everything, but it was quite a interesting fact that I had a lot of closed doors. I had a lot of doors slammed in my face. And the next slide, please. Okay. In 2015, everything changed for me again. My son was already grown and he was married and out of the house. And I had a silly thing happen where I bumped my head and I looked at something that had belonged to my biological mother. And I decided it was time to search. And so everything that I let go for 15 years, all of a sudden, I was gung ho. I became obsessed. I changed a room into like a detective room. I had charts, I had pictures, I made phone calls. I did a lot of extensive research. I started taking trips whenever I was off of work. I would fly up to Canada, tried to reconnect with my family up there, but one uncle, he would speak to me, and one aunt, but the others, they wanted to have nothing to do with me because there was that such a long gap of years that went by. So the reunion with them never happened. But I became obsessed. And then I had one of my aunts that liked me. She had passed away and she had found in the house the films, and she said they were soggy and wet. So she sent them to me, and I received them. She had already passed away when I received them. And it just shows that my mother traveled all over. She was all over Europe. She spent also time in Cuba, which I thought was interesting. I found that she was in Cuba for 3 weeks in 1959. And if 1959, if anybody knows any history, Fidel Castro had taken over January 16th, 1959. She was there from in July through August 1959. Next slide, please.
Diana, Mimi has her hand up.
Yes, go ahead. I didn't see she had her hand up. Doesn't show me that. Yes, Mimi, go ahead.
No, I actually don't have my hand, so I'll take it down. I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry.
Oh, but if you have a question, go ahead. I could use a
did.
question.
I'm just listening. I'm enthralled. So
Okay. And through my search, thanks, Mimi. Through my search, there were many, many people that helped me. A lot of people, I went down a lot of, they thought they knew who my mother was. It seemed that my mother's records had disappeared, all her school records. She was one of 5. She was the youngest of 5 children. All her records are gone, yet the older children records I was able to find through calling the schools and everything and get information, but my mom's records don't exist. These are two men that were very helpful. One is James Dubrow on the left. He's actually a crime writer, very big in Canada, and he was a big help on inspiring me on the journey. But the other man was a journalist who, he believed everything he heard about my story. I had spoke to other journalists and they said, nobody wants to do anything that's 50 years old. Nobody wants to be bothered, you know. It's too long. But he said, no, we're going to find out. And so he would send me articles, he would send letters, emails. He did a lot. And unfortunately, he did pass during COVID, but not from COVID, but he did pass during COVID. So that's when it stopped. But he found out a lot of information, and it's in the book, what he found out. And it was very much about who my mother, more information about my mother. And they were just really, really great. And it's wonderful that I had them in my life to help me because he didn't know me at all. And yet he did so much for me, where others wouldn't, including family. Next page. This is the one picture that I could find. These are my adopted parents. I'll say adopted parents. This is the only picture I could find where the three of us are together. My mom was already sick here with cancer, and that's me in the middle. And that was my dad, and he was great. And that was up actually not too far from this area here, about 40 minutes away from where I'm staying right now. So it's very nostalgic to me. And next, please. And just recently, because I have a publisher, and very interesting woman. She doesn't believe in Amazon. Sorry, Linda, but we had decided to go on Amazon because of I've had a lot of people in other countries requesting the book. So as of this past week, it is now available on Amazon. It's still available, of course, on my website, and I do personalize them on the website. And it is in local bookstores, and it's starting to be in some libraries now too. So that's a really big step on this traveling that I've been doing. I've been traveling this last week. Some of the research I'm doing, one library accepted the book, so I'm really excited about that. I'm very pleased that they decided to. I think it was the right direction to go. I don't know anybody else's opinion on it, but that's where we are at. Can we go to the next slide, please? And this is I just want to thank you thank you so much for your support provided by the adoption community. Your kindness, compassion, and presence have been tremendous sources of comfort to me. I cannot express enough thanks for your incredible positive influence. My heartfelt gratitude goes to Marcie, Keithley, Beth, Stewley, Jeff, Jennifer, Finley, and then, sorry, on my nose, they have an animal in here and I'm allergic. The national adoption of adoptees and parents, as well as the wonderful people I have met through Adoption Happy Hour. But I did want to say, in my part closing, before Marcie asked me some questions, that my story, it's not a simple story. It's very complicated. What my whole life was a lie. What I was led to in this world, you could never imagine. Everything was a lie. What I uncovered wasn't just my birth or my family. It exposed systems on secrecy, power, silence. The truth has a cost. It was emotional, physical, relational, but in the end, it gave something for me that I hadn't before. I have clarity now, freedom, and connection. If my story encourages even one person to ask those hard questions, then every step of this journey has been worth it. Because 30 years is a long time. And actually, it was 2 months before I went to my first Untangling the Roots that I found out who my biological father was. So Marcie, you have some questions?
Yes, thank you for that slideshow. That was very helpful. And for those of you that haven't read it, again, I highly recommend it. But I will say this: the book is full of twists and turns and surprises and a lot of characters. And it was you gotta stay on your toes when you read this. We have a little bit of, like I said, there's mystery in it. There's a lot of emotional ups and downs. There's the mafia, Fidel Castro. I mean, there's just so much to it.
Right.
And overall, this mystery still with your mother and all her records that were hidden. And I'm just going to jump around here a little bit.
It's fine.
Because can you guys still hear me? Did I freeze?
You froze.
I thought I froze there for a moment. The one thing that I wanted to talk about was, let's talk about Mother's Day. Mother's
Yes.
Day. Talk to our attendees about that day and what was planned and then what happened.
Okay. Mother's Day, suppose
And which
19
year?
yeah,
What year was that?
in 1966, my mother, Ethel, the mother that raised me, I'll say my adopted mother, she passed away from cancer. A year later, my father had a surprise. He wanted to take me to New York, into the city, the Plaza Hotel. And he said he had a special friend coming in from Canada through somebody he knew. And she had actually even sent the dress because I didn't want to go. And then he told me, well, you can wear go-go boots with my dress. So we went to the Plaza Hotel. I really wanted to go. I was a kid. I wanted to go to a birthday party. I was 12. I didn't want to go. I don't know. That's how it was. So we went, and she didn't show up. And the person who was supposed to show up was Donna, was supposed to show up at the Plaza Hotel. That was her dream, to see the Plaza. Her favorite author had just been there, Truman Capote. And the disappointment in my father, I mean, I didn't know who this woman was. I had asked questions because your parents, there's something wrong. The feelings that I saw he had, I mean, you could see the sweat coming from his forehead, and you're a kid. Like, why is he so upset? So she didn't show up, Central Park's down the road. We can just go to Central Park. I didn't know at the time that this woman that didn't show up was my biological mother. And another part of the story, which I guess I don't mind sharing at the time, is, there's even a plane ticket that she had from Montreal to New York. And why wasn't she on that plane? That's one of the unanswered questions. Wouldn't you agree to that, Marcie? Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you really don't know all the details about how your raised father and Donna even communicated to to arrange that meeting. You really don't know because he didn't share that with you, because he didn't tell you that was your biological mother.
Correct.
So you were just what, 11, 12, something?
I was just turned. I was going to be 12 that summer. I was going to be
So
12.
yeah, that's what I'm picturing, is you as a 12-year-old going to the big city to meet somebody that your dad was obviously excited for you to meet, but he was nervous, and you could tell that, and then nothing. And then what he had to say to you, because she didn't show up, and then you find it out as an adult.
Right, as an adult.
That's gotta trigger some emotions there. And oh my God, what happened? And nobody knows.
And that was another thing. There was a reporter in Sarasota back in 2000 and, let me see, 2015. There was an article that he was going to write. It was going to be a Mother's Day article. That's another story in itself. It's under the Billy Cox chapter. And the article, even though I went as far as the photo shoot, I did the interviews, everything, it was ready to go. And right before it was to run, it got cut.
It's just, there's just so many unanswered questions about her. And the break-in of your home. I mean, what was it that they were looking for?
Oh, I don't know, but that was really bad. The break-in was bad. I
Yeah,
mean, it was like looking at a movie where everything was turned upside
exactly.
down. Like, what were they looking for?
And then we don't want to give away some of the
No.
things in your book at all. But there's a couple things that come to mind, but we want to save that for others. But um, I did want to ask you this one question. Like, what's one of the most difficult moments in the journey, and how did you cope? I mean, was it that time when you got that threat, or was it when you accidentally found out that you were adopted at 39 years old? What was the hardest part of that?
Um, there's several actually. I guess some of the unexpected, the dangerous truths that we uncovered during our search. I never imagined that my personal story would intersect with black market baby trafficking, corrupt legal systems, or even brushes with government involvement. As I pulled on threads, I uncovered things that nobody will even talk about these days. There's layers of deception, there's money laundering, power, and silence. It taught me that the truth doesn't come easy. It's often buried beneath fear, shame, and systematic failure. So, yes, the truth does have a cost. And no, I did lose a lot of relationships. I lost my sense of safety. And even for some time, I lost myself, but I also found freedom and deeper understanding of who I am. So was it worth it? Yeah, I think the truth is always worth it, but it depends. Everything, it demands everything from you. It's not a fairy tale, it's a reckoning.
I would agree. I would agree with that. So you find let's back up a little bit. You do find your biological family, and they welcome you.
Hmm.
Aunt Jan is the
Aunt
Aunt
Jan,
Jan,
Aunt
I
Jan,
gotta say,
Aunt Jan. She
she's a
is
pistol.
something else, isn't
She's a
she?
pistol. So walk everybody through meeting your biological aunts and what that was like for you. David was little then,
Um,
wasn't he? How old was David when you met your?
David, let's see,
Wasn't
he
he
was
in his preteen?
10,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
10,
Yeah, there we
10,
go.
10 years old. And what I told him, because I remember we flew into Seattle and then we rented a car and I took a ferry. I had to make it somewhat fun. And I had told him we're meeting family we've never met before, and if it doesn't work out, we're gonna go do. All he wanted to do, oh, can we go to the fun places? So that's how I handled the situation with him at the time, because I wanted it to be fun for him no matter what. My aunt, when I first saw my aunt, you know, she came out and walking. She called me Donna, and she started walking towards me. And, it was they live up on a hill overlooking Burlip Inlet. It looks sort of like anybody ever watched that show that's up in Vancouver, um, Virgin River. Okay, that's the scene, just so you know the scene a little bit. And, she called me Donna and she invited me in and this and that, but she was very secretive. And it was a 4-bedroom house and a basement. And it was just her and her husband. And guess where we got to sleep? Down in the basement. Yes, and I'm her only niece, and I'm down in the basement with my son in another country. But yeah, I don't know how much you want me to elaborate like that, but that was very interesting, as you know.
Well, we can talk about the one thing because she was an odd duck. Okay, she really was an odd duck.
Hmm.
And then what you discover in the basement too.
Hmm.
That was. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't mind talking. I've spoke about that before. We were sleeping, and it was chilly down in the basement. Besides, it was chilly. And we saw these horse blankets. So my son gets up and he pulls the blanket down And I get up and I see, and there's all these boxes. Donna, Paris. Donna, Laurentians. Donna, Cuba. Donna, Switzerland. There's all these different boxes labeled, but then we hear some noise coming down, and David says, she's coming, she's coming, she's coming. So we take the blankets and we try to hang it back up. And she said, what's going on here? And he said that he knocked the blanket down, that he was cold. So he kind of covered it up. So, and the boxes, of course, do I want to know what's in them? Yes, but it was our second night there, and I guess I was afraid at the time. You don't want to lose. You're just connecting for the first time, and this is where we go in the fear factor. Now I would, if it happened at now, knowing what I know now and the person I am now, I would have opened those boxes and I wouldn't have cared. But back then, I didn't dare open the box. You just didn't do it.
I just thought that was this huge house, and she puts you in the basement where all that information is. Again, question mark. What's going on with that? Did she want you to look? Was she testing you? I don't know.
I don't know. And I don't know. She was a very odd duck. She did know about that there was a baby. She's the only one, and she chose never to tell. She didn't share it with her siblings. As I said, there were 5 of them, and out of all 5, I am the only biological. Because one uncle never got married. The other uncle married somebody who already had children.
Mm-hmm.
And one aunt, she was married for a long time. It was an abusive relationship. And then there was another relationship she had. But there were no children except my mother, just had me.
Speaking of Donna, she was a lot of things. You found out a lot about her. But what do you think that one thing was, though, that shocked you, that surprised you the most about her?
I think we got to read the book on that one.
Okay, well, we'll save that one. I know the answer to that one too. But
I know you do. But that took me too long. Yes, but besides from she was an accountant, bookkeeping, and we know she did some modeling, but she also did some other stuff.
Yeah, she did. It's just amazing that all of the book.
Keep in mind, she spoke 5 or 6 languages fluently.
Mm-hmm. You titled the book perfectly from reading it, because you were really, literally, I think adoptees have to be, they learn to be detectives, right?
Yes.
You want your truth so badly. But I found in this memoir that one thing led to the next, to the next, to the next person, to the next connection. And then maybe there was silence on some of those connections, and then they sprung up again. And it just goes, like I said, there's a lot of characters in this. And I had to go back and reread and get all the
right.
the Morts and the Monties and all everybody.
Well, a lot of the names, some names, of course, would change. There's there's an appendix and everything. There's endnotes and everything. It's quite detailed. Mm-hmm. I had to be very thorough about everything, and which is fine. But she cut out, and she even cut out a lot, But I think they did a really good job with it. I'm really happy with how the book turned out, and I'm very happy with the reviews it's getting. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why I think Amazon is also going to be a good choice for me. And then, Barnes and Noble, I just think more avenues or whatever. And, she saw where it was going. I mean, she's a South Carolina publisher. She actually just won the literacy for the whole state of South Carolina. She won the big award and stuff like that too. But I think usually she just, some of, smaller, the what I call boutique type of publishing, they don't go super, super big. And she says the story is too big to keep small. It's more than just here.
Mm-hmm. Now, when did you start to write your book, and when did you finish?
Well, I was journaling even back in the at the beginning. I had notes. I didn't realize that I was journaling. But then I really started doing a lot of in 2015. Then when I was living in Denver, and it was actually Dermot Travis, the journalist Dermot Travis, that said, you need to write a book. You know, I mean, I heard it before, and then, but he said, no, you need to write a book. And that was what really kind of made me think more, well, you know, now that I just felt I needed more answers. I think that's what slowed me down too much, you know, plus I worked full time. And, you know, I would move several times. And a lot of times adoptees do move around. We do tend to move around. I'm sure you've heard that before too.
And I think in writing too, you know, in my experience, I was thinking of how to end my story. And when you begin to write, for those of you that have never written before or in the process, you find this out, the memoir of your personal life, it starts to shape up and take on a life of its own, and it pulls you in the direction that you need to write. That's something I found. And that I was getting really discouraged with my own story because I couldn't find the ending. I didn't know how to finish it. And I was questioning that. And of course, as it all turns out, is the story hadn't happened yet. The ending hadn't happened yet.
Well, and that's it. And I'll share that too. You
Yeah,
know that
I noticed that. Yeah.
my story's not over.
Right. So
You
you
know,
do have to
and
pick a point, but because it's our everyday life, you know, it's not like it reads like a novel. But you do want to think about that ending. How does that end up? And you got to that point, and I think
I got
acceptance.
to the point where acceptance, as you said, I had to
Yeah.
accept
Yeah.
an acceptance, but trust me, it's not over.
And I found that out too.
Yes.
I found that out too. So yeah, it's just yeah, you probably you've got another story in you. So your
Yeah,
stories
maybe.
just continue, they evolve. They grow
Well,
little
you
tentacles.
know, it's a matter of you know, the more people I talk to and this and that too, it's you know, everybody has stories, and it's just trying to relate to them, you know, to see, you know, looking back here, you know, I'm gonna switch gears here for a second. I am up in a home which is about 800 miles away from me, and a friend of mine that were college friends, we were roommates. We were friends for, and we haven't seen each other in 48 years. She read my book. This is why I'm sharing this. She read my book, and that was it. You know, it's been nonstop calling me, talking to me. And she lost her husband, but I was with her the day she met her husband, and she always remembers that. That's part of our story. And she knew my father, you know, that raised me. So for her to see me reading what she did, knowing me, the old me, and seeing this, because she says you were shy. You know, I was shy then. You never get me in front of a camera then. It would not happen. You know, I was the little one that went behind the skirt. You know, I'm going behind you. You know, I'm not going to have this. We're not going to do this. So to see me evolve into this now, and I'm not afraid of anything now. I'm not afraid. People have said to me, well, aren't you afraid because of the people that are involved and still involved? No, I'm not. Come on, I'm ready. You know. So,
Encourage. Yeah, there's so much power in our stories.
but yeah, so it takes a lot, and you know, I never want to stop learning, and you shouldn't never want to stop learning. You want to constantly keep growing. And yes, you had yourself a shockaroo, but I know it, and I can feel, and I have empathy for you. But I also know that you're evolving from it, and that's where your next
Exactly.
begins.
That's exactly. It's just
So
never.
yes,
It just
no.
evolves and changes. Yeah. And we just embrace that and move through our story because it's never over. But in all things, seek the truth. You know, that's all we want. There's a
Well,
cost.
and
There's a cost for that truth, like you said. There is a
there's a
cost.
cost, and I did lose some relationships and friendships
Mhm.
over it. I did. I absolutely
Same
did.
here. But it belongs to us.
Correct.
It belongs to you. It belongs to Lori. It belongs to Mimi. It belongs to
Hmm.
Beth. It belongs to all of us. And we don't have to be quiet about that any longer.
No, and I refuse to be quiet about it.
And, you know, writing your story, your personal story, is a very, very brave thing to do. It's a little scary at the same time, but it's liberating. And
Yeah, and you know, you that read it, and anybody that's read it knows that knowing what you know now, look what I found out 2 months before I came to untangling. So you know,
right.
you know,
I mean, I look back at that too, and I, you know, just think about the symmetry of that, you know, how we met, you know, you were one of the first ones for happy hour and the way you found us, you know, back in the day. And then here we are all these years later. So
and I have all these relatives. This
yeah,
is another thing, as you know, I have all these relatives in the Indiana area, and I believe there's one of them on the Zoom call right now.
yeah. Yeah. So
He
I just
doesn't live in Indiana
that's so
anymore, but
cool.
in fact that there's, you know, I have a biological uncle. He lives in Indiana, Elhart,
It's
you know.
just, yeah.
So
Well, I think I was going to open it up to questions here from our attendees here in a few minutes, and Lori's got her hand up. So if it's okay with
okay.
you, we can
Yes.
start in and let the attendees ask you some questions. Hi, Lori. Good to see you.
Hey, hey, you guys.